So we were at 10F.
10F, this is a replacement of the motor pool roof, so this was damaged during Hurricane Milton. I've already authorized this as an emergency repair because we've got to get that taken care of very quickly. This is a $215,504 roof replacement. We will submit this, and it has been submitted through our insurance. It is also tagged as a FEMA project. So when we pursue public assistance reimbursement from FEMA, this is one of those projects. As I said, I've already approved this so we can get that work underway. So this is a request for City Commission ratification of the item.
Okay. All right.
Is it complete?
To the resolutions.
Is it a complete? No.
It is a complete roof replacement, yes. That membrane, it all lifted up and then you had water that penetrated underneath it. 11A is appointing Ed Smith to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. So on that AHAC, you have a representative from the Planning Commission. Elizabeth Davis has been that representative. Commissioner Dantzler is your appointee to that as well. Ms. Davis has stepped down from Planning Commission. So we need to appoint somebody from the Planning Commission to fill that designated seat on the AHAC, and Ed Smith is who's recommended for that.
This is not Ed Smith, the county commissioner.
No, this is
No,
Ed
no.
Smith,
That's what I was.
younger individual. You'll know him
He's
when you
not
see him.
Okay.
physically
He's a
able.
professor at Polk State College.
Okay, good.
All right. On this is first reading.
So 12A, this is the Paul Schultz property coming back to you. They did a PUD for this project a few years back, you'll recall, in 2020. They are requesting to amend that PUD and take approximately 6 acres of what's in the PUD that contains the Outback Oasis event venue and the associated pavilion, restroom, and ponds. You can see it outlined in red there. And that was intended to be commercial event space that was going to be used. That was one of the big conflicts that the community had with that original PUD. Petitioner is proposing to remove that commercial use and instead develop that area with estate-size lots comparable to the surrounding parcels. It could, theoretically, the maximum would be 18 single-family units you could fit in there, but when you factor in the design, the development standards, the infrastructure requirements, the existing pond, it's certainly going to be much less than 18. But they're looking to get away from that, corporate event space and make that residential.
Does this have to go back to the state like it did before? And
Eric, this is a PUD amendment. It's pretty small. I would think not.
Doesn't require state review.
And this did go to the Planning Commission. This is advertised. This is posted out there when it goes to Planning Commission. No member spoke at the Planning Commission. Planning Commission recommended.
Really?
No. Eric, did you have anybody even in attendance at that Planning Commission?
No, nobody spoke. We've received a couple of phone calls, and the general consensus is it should be residential, and we have had no opposition.
Like I said, I think the biggest opposition when we looked at this PUD in 2020 was that commercial space.
Commercial, yeah. Okay, 12B.
This is just an expansion of the CDD associated with Peace Creek Village. So there's a map, AJ, you can see the existing Peace Creek Village on the top of Old Bartow Lake Wells Road. They are developing another section to the south and want that to be added to that same CDD. The current one, I think, is the Annabelle Estates subdivision, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, and that's about 95 plus or minus acres. This new one will be south of it. It'd be just shy of 85 acres. So, and that is the reserve at the Lake Parker subdivision. We've had a couple items come through recently with this on some development items that you guys have approved. When it's all said and done, the CDD will be 180 plus or minus acres. They will, the CDD allows the developer to bond for infrastructure improvements and establish non-ad valorem special assessments on future property owners to pay for that. The thing I always want to point out to the commission is that there is no financial impact on the city with this whatsoever. So The city will not incur any costs related to the establishment of the CDD, nor will any of the debts that the CDD incurs become debts of the city or the county. CDD dissolves, we're not responsible for taking on that debt. That's back on the CDD, it remains there. Likewise, their efforts to issue debt have no bearing on our capacity to issue debt for any of our projects. So
Utilities, does that, do they maintain?
in this case, water, sewer, and reuse will be maintained by the city.
Okay.
All of their roads and drainage infrastructure is owned by the CDD. But they pay for their installation of all that. They're doing that through their CDD, revenue streams.
Okay.
And then the last one I have for you this evening, happy to say that the Grant and Aid Application Review Committee met on November 1st. Katrina facilitated that meeting. Katrina Hill, our Director of Public Affairs and Communications. They have 4 recommendations. We do this meeting every November or every fall, once we complete a process for them to provide some feedback. So their 4 recommendations were, first, to allow for an opportunity for a sufficiency review on applications. So we'll shorten the application window by 2 weeks. That gives the applicants 2 weeks to submit their applications, our staff 2 weeks to review those applications and follow back up with any agencies that are not sufficient in their application so they have time to make corrections. That was something that came about this year. We didn't have that, and that's why you had a number of items end up ahead of, before you all to make decisions on. They recommend eliminating that $40,000 single initiative. That is something we've never been able to fund because of the sheer number of nonprofits that we have. And I certainly would support that, but I would also suggest that if there was a nonprofit that approached the commission and the commission wanted to consider something separate on that, that's certainly your prerogative, but I would remove that from this grant and aid process so as to we're putting something out there that we have never been able to follow through on. They would like to, and we don't have to do this during this meeting, but at some point get request clarification from the commission on how to address funding requests that come from schools or from other established foundations. So we've had a number of those have come in, local charter schools or programs that have formal fundraising foundations that are asking for grant and aid. Is that something you want them to consider? And I'm just throwing that out for you to give some deliberation on. I'll come back in January asking for some more detailed clarification on this, but that's been somewhat of a point of contention that's come up in the grant and aid. And then also they'll be looking for some direction on how you wish to address these legacy members that we have, and we note those in the fact sheet. These include the PEP, Winter Haven Public Education Partnership, Girls Inc., the Neighborhood Service Center, Boys and Girls Club of Polk County, Meals on Wheels, and the Haley Center. These are the agencies that the commission has funded at a fairly high level every year, and knowing if that's the commission's desire going in, then they can, address those right off the bat, and based upon what funding is left, then tackle the rest of them. We have given them that guidance in years past, but I think it's more so just getting a formal nod from the commission when we get ready to call this committee back together. And I guess they'll meet in May.
Is there a review of any of them, even though the
We have-
legacy is
they're-
just automatic? Or?
They're all reviewed. They all submit the application just the same. It's just about where the funding threshold goes.
Did we put Meals on Wheels in there as a legacy, or I know that was a discussion?
Well, when we say, there's not a designation, Commissioner Dawson, of legacy. That's a term we use. These are folks that we have historically funded at a higher level. That's what that's intended
That's
to
the only thing,
Yeah.
not that they're automatic.
Right. But it allows us to say, okay, if we want to maintain Boys and Girls Club at $45,000, or we want to maintain the Haley Center at $20,000, then we know that right off the bat. We clear that off the budget, and then that tells us how much we have to work with for the rest of them. The last thing I want to point out with this is I've given you all a copy of this document. So I had a privilege to meet with Kim Long yesterday, and I shared with her our grant and aid process, and the fact that the past 2 years, we have used the United Way Give Well Community Assessment is guidance on what are noted as the challenges in Polk County. And when we look at grant and aid programs that help address some of those challenges that were noted in there, whether that's education, after-school care, workforce development, transportation, housing, all those different things, those become the priorities of the Grant and Aid Committee, because those are very clearly defined and measured, needs within the community. I believe your document is flagged, and I just wanted to share with you that starting on around page 68, I think it is, of this document, there's a vision update survey. The information that's in here gives kind of a health check on all of those different categories that assessment did 2 years ago, and gives some relevant current day issues and trends of things that need to be addressed within the county. And what I would suggest is that when we talk with our Grant and Aid Committee, these are some of the guidance documents we give them as to these are the challenges, not just in Polk County, but specifically right here in Winter Haven, that as they're allocating funds out, those nonprofits that help address these concerns would be, wise investments.
Okay, we could say it in the past that we just really didn't fund schools.
Yeah.
I concur with that. And I can speak to what the TDC does, and, the TDC arts, we used to fund fireworks displays, but we've gotten where we're not going to fund municipalities anymore unless it's something really extraordinary. And we're not going to do anything unless it's arts, culture, and heritage. And we're not going to do, like I said, fireworks displays, and most of the stuff is cities are going to have applied for. So we've really tightened it down with the county. And I think as this becomes more popular and more people apply for the money, we're going to have to tighten it up.
Yeah.
And I've never been comfortable giving money to schools.
Well, and when we did, that was a separate, when we did the field.
Yeah, that's a different
That's,
thing.
but that's still, you know what I'm saying? That's,
But when you have charter schools that are asking for, maybe a playground, we've had a couple charter schools that have asked for that, or scholarship supports or things like that. That's typically what we see.
so,
Well, we can certainly, if that's the consensus on schools, we'll make note of that, and then, we'll certainly ask for specific direction in January.
is that consensus?
Yeah.
Real?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll come back in January and get a little further guidance on that. It also gives us a chance that when Katrina meets with, we'll do 3 training programs again, 3 application training programs. And during those sessions, it gives us a chance to tell the applicants, these are the types of projects that we're looking for. These are the things that the commission is not interested in funding. And that will save them time and energy if that's what they were going to apply for. So.
Okay.
Notable quality of life, that number one was affordable and safe housing.
Yep.
That was,
Yeah, I certainly want to give you all time to look through that. I think it's some great
Yeah.
information
Yeah, it
beyond
is.
even
It
this, but
It
that
is.
over the next, month and a half to think about, okay, what would be some priorities you would want to see Grant and Aid go towards, and we can build around that.
Yeah, I serve on this board, and this was a big gargantuan effort for us. Glad we're using it. Glad it, instead of sitting on some desk somewhere.
Sitting on my desk, sir.
Yeah, it's good to know.
but it's good information, I think, that really gives you a bird's eye view of just kind of the makeup and just how and really what your community really looks like, and what they think is most important as well.
The last thing I just note on the Grant and Aid, and it's Commissioner Dawson, if you happen to identify an individual that you'd like to appoint, you have the one vacant seat
Right,
on there. So
right,
if you just want to get with me, and we'll prepare that as a fact sheet to bring to the City Commission for their blessing, and then go through that process. We would want to have that person, if possible, on board by the time we complete our trainings. It's always good for our committee members to sit through at least one of those trainings so they understand it from the angle of the applicant.
Mr. Mayor, I got one thing.
Yes.
When I was recommending that we recognize the schools for their efforts for the hurricanes, I failed to mention the hospital, and I feel like, I just want to get what y'all's opinion on, because the hospital was open through the whole hurricane, did yeoman's work, kept people on staff the whole time. I don't know if y'all feel obligated as a measure of goodwill to maybe recognize the hospital too for their efforts during the hurricanes, but I'm throwing it out there because I meant to bring that up when I brought up the schools, and I just forgot to bring up the hospital. But having one of the executives come here and get a proclamation may, they did do a lot of extra work. I'm just throwing it out there if y'all want to do it. If you don't, that's okay too, but I thought we'd talk about it.
Yeah, we can do that. It's not a big.
I have no problem with it. You
We will,
can write it.
We will,
We'll do a proclamation.
we will prepare something and get it to the agenda as quick as possible.
Before the year is over.
That gives me, I've only got one more meeting, so
That's what I'm saying.
we got one Monday and I got one December 9th.
All right. Anything else?
That's all, sir.
All right. There's nothing else, no reports. Developments of note, none, emergency matters, we stand adjourned.